Alrighty. Okay. So good evening and welcome everyone to our Beaker Brief. My name is Sydney Tilley and I am the Assistant Director of Alumni and Family Engagement here at Eastern. The goal of these briefs is to quickly educate on a topic that our alumni are interested in. And tonight we're excited to have Paul Trusty to share with us about insights in networking and interview techniques, along with our Center for Career Development team to debut their interviewing software, Big Interview. And then, so to go ahead and welcome Paul, I'd like to welcome him. Paul Trusty has over a decade of human resources experience and has worked at several iconic retail and consumer brands. A former basketball team captain here at Eastern University, he emphasizes teamwork and leadership. So, Paul, I'll go ahead and hand it over to you.
Cool, Mark. Thanks for taking the time and letting me have to present in this panel. I'm definitely very excited. Eastern's been a big part of my life. Being able to go here and make a lot of good lifelong relationships, and also just being able to kind of connect with a lot of people from my best friends and my wife I met at Eastern, so a lot of good connections. So let me pull up my screen. Okay, cool. Uh, so again, thanks for allowing me. So as you kind of highlighted, so my name's Paul Trusty, and I'm an Eastern grad. So I got to play basketball while I was here. Eastern was a big part of my life. Leaned on Sarah a lot during the career services team. I got to do a few internships at some cool places while I was here. I got the intern at Philadelphia Eagles, AFLAC, and human resources of a community college. So definitely kind of laid the groundwork for a lot of what my career is today. Currently, I'm an associate director of talent acquisition. So in the human resources space, certified human resources generalist. And overall, again, definitely excited to be able to share some experience. I've been able to kind of come to some of the career classes recently, and that's been great being able to connect with some of the current students and being able to stay in touch with them. And though I'm not on campus anymore, I still try to visit. Usually try to visit like a football game or a basketball game throughout the year. So I was at the first football game. That was exciting to see them come out with the W, and looking forward to staying connected with the Eastern community. So today, kind of what we're going to talk a little bit about marketing yourselves, interview skills, and really kind of principles for success. These are just kind of overall try to give some best practices on, from being a student and then also being a candidate and on the HR side, just in people as people are preparing themselves for interviews and being able to get that dream job. Overall, kind of starting off with just networking. When thinking about networking, the big thing I would say is, when you're looking at your network, the big thing is how do you be able to build relationships with people. Everybody, when they're thinking about networking, sometimes often thinks about it as a transaction, but really networking is about how can you be able to kind of invest in a personal relationship with someone so that both people are winning. It's not just something where you want you to come out with a job or you to come out with a salary increase. At the end of the day, you want that person to feel like they're kind of being able to build some good rapport with you, and that person to be able to kind of get something out of it as well. When you're thinking about your network, I think everybody to some extent has a network. Whether it's your parents, it's the people you went to church with, the people who you're currently working with, the people who you're in class with. Like those are all valuable people who you can kind of be able to build relationships with and be able to who understand you, can help you to find your next role, help you to find the next opportunity. Overall, I recommend not just focusing on the short term, but focusing on the long term, and trying to kind of curate conversations so that you understand what that person is trying to accomplish and that you're able to kind of build some credibility. I remember even from my time at Eastern, there's a lot of people who I did like projects with, like Professor Gilmore's class or other classes, and I still remember like the people who showed up on time and who went above and beyond, and then the people who didn't complete their work. And if it ever came down to it, and John Smith, a random person from the class, or John Smith's a random name, that's not a real name, but they show up and they wanted a referral. And if they weren't the person who didn't hand in their project, I'd be like, I don't know, like it was 10 years ago, but we might have got an A instead of a B plus. Like So I think people remember that stuff, and I think you want to kind of build your credibility, academically and throughout your career. Um, as you're kind of building that, I think being able to take advantage of informational interviews is a great thing. And it's a good way to be able to learn about different career paths. I feel like when you're kind of early in the career, I mean, anytime, like I feel like you're always kind of thinking like you think that next step is going to be perfect, but you really don't know until you actually get there, or you actually start to talk to some people. I remember even like myself, like I had a chance to intern at the Philadelphia Eagles, fun opportunity, great chance to work in sports. But there's a lot of the dynamics about working in sports that, maybe they're obvious to the average person, but weren't obvious to me. Like I love sports because I love watching the games, I love hanging out at the games. When you work in sports, you are at the game. You work the games. Like you drive to the games, you drive home in the traffic after we lose by 30. Like you have to go through all of that. So definitely trying to just kind of be aware of that. And again, you don't learn these little nuances sometimes, or I mean, they're not maybe obvious. So you actually start to work there, start to talk to some people, and start to learn what that's like. Um, Resume, again, I think this is really a document that's ultimately a marketing piece. For most people, I'd say less is more. For most people, you want to be able to keep it one page or less, maybe 2 pages or 3 pages if you have extensive experience. But usually once you start to get like the double-digit pages, like that's a little bit tough to read for most roles. You ultimately wanted to tell a clear message. Someone should be able to take a look at your resume and understand what it is that you're trying to accomplish, and how your goals connect to the job. I think the more you can kind of customize your resume for the job that you're applying for is the better. For example, if you are applying for a job in retail, the summers that you had working in the mall, that's really relevant. Companies are going to be really interested to know, if you're applying for a job in retail, you know how to work a point of sale system, what warehouse management is, you kind of understand customer interaction. But if you're applying for a job in finance, that finance company, it might not be as important that you know what a point of sale system is. Um, so really just trying to be cognizant of that and really give them the information that they need. And that's really going to allow you to kind of like stand out and really show that you understand what the job is about. I think also being able to tell a story with using metrics and quantifying that as much as possible. If, for example, if you are an Uber driver, I think you could say, hey, I deliver food really fast, or you could say, I deliver 15 meals a night. I get 5-star ratings and complete transactions that are worth $60 each transaction. And I think both of those are kind of saying the same thing. One of them gives a very different piece about like, just what exactly you're doing versus just saying that, hey, you deliver it really fast. So I think just being cognizant of that and being aware of that is definitely valuable. LinkedIn, LinkedIn's a social media site. Ultimately, I think when you're thinking about LinkedIn, trying to use it somewhere to other platforms that you're on, so Facebook and TikTok and Instagram, but just being able to share content and show yourself as a subject matter expert. I think the big thing to kind of keep with LinkedIn versus other channels is, it is like a professional site, so kind of keep that in mind. You would want it to be things that your boss or future coworker can see. Um, when you're using LinkedIn, I definitely use it, encourage you to use it, connect with alumni, connect with other people from your network. But always, I think, try to make it clear what you're trying to accomplish. I get lots of connection requests, and the ones that I'm more likely to respond to are the ones that are kind of a clear call to action. If someone says to me, hey, I'm also Eastern alumni, I'm in human resources, and I live in your town, I'm like, oh, let's meet up for lunch versus if you are reaching out to me and you go to Indiana State and you're a construction worker. Again, you might be great, but a little bit like how are we connected? So I think the more you can draw that connection for people is the better. When you're thinking about your profile, I think just keeping search engine optimization top of mind is valuable. Um, a lot of times when people are listing their jobs, they're not necessarily thinking like, how are people going to find me? If you list yourself as a, fix it person and you're fixing computers, like that might be really cool. That might describe what you're doing. But really, what you might be doing is like network engineering might be the more common title, or desktop support. So just kind of keeping that in mind that, no one's going to be, or very, what are people most likely going to be searching for if they want someone to fix their network? A network engineer, or desktop support, or cybersecurity person, or fix it guru. So though that one may be like kind of like internally might make sense for your company or might make sense there, but you want to just kind of think like, what's the broader audience? How is that going to like, how's the algorithm going to work in terms of that? As you're getting prepared for your interview, overall, I would say you definitely want to try to have an elevator pitch ready. I think it's one of those like simple things, and I know the career services group always talks about it, but it definitely is important. Those 30 seconds can help to build a lot of good rapport. In my career, I've been able to build good relationships and kind of even go back and network with people just based off of those 30-second elevator pitches. Someone who ended up helping me to get a role. We just met at a networking event. At that time, she wasn't employed. I was just someone earlier in my career, but we had a good conversation. And next thing you know, maybe 6 months down the road, she has a role and was able to kind of network through our networking. We're able to kind of build some good rapport and make a good connection there. So I think always kind of having that elevator pitch ready, practicing it feels silly, but practicing running the mirrors, you can get it out clearly, you can get it out in enough time so that the other person can clearly understand what you're hoping to accomplish. Um, Also, just as you're getting ready for interviews, I think just using the different tools that are out there, LinkedIn, Indeed, Glassdoor, those are great tools to be able to kind of check out different profiles and company ratings. Use that to develop questions and get a good understanding of really what you could be accomplishing in this role. While you're interviewing, encourage you to kind of get a good pulse on like what's it like to work there. I mean, the person you're interviewing with, you could be spending 40 hours plus a week with that person. Is that person funny? Is that someone you want to receive feedback from? Is that someone who you'd be comfortable with like coaching you and helping you to get to the next step in your career? All of those things are important and things that you want to kind of put at the forefront when you're going through the interview process. Um, Again, interviewing, I say practice as much as possible. There's so many different companies that have different styles, like, using the STAR interview and, the different kinds of methodology that are out there. And you can probably put as much work into like putting ready for a STAR interview as you do for like SAT prep. So really just kind of having that in mind and getting ready so that you were able to kind of put your best foot forward in conversations. When you're interviewing, I'd say the big thing is just kind of considering format and audience. You kind of want to understand what's the person's objective versus who you're talking to. If you're talking to someone who's doing the work, you want to be asking questions about doing the work in the day to day. Versus if you're talking to the CEO or an executive, like, they're probably going to be more not in the day to day, but about the big picture and, kind of about the strategic element. So just kind of having that and having a good understanding. I also feel like a follow-up message with a thank you goes a long way. And for a lot of people, it's still really important so that they know that you value their experience, that this is still a good option for you. I think try to send it within 24 hours if possible, so that you can kind of get that message out there. Um, Compensation, I mean, this is one of those things that I would say um, you could probably do a whole meeting just on compensation and kind of talking about what's the right way to do that and what's the right way to negotiate. I think overall, I mean, again, the best thing is to really try to understand the market, try to understand that there's a lot of different variables that come into compensation, and they're all going to be important. They're going to be ranked differently for different people, from PTO to 401k to your salary to other perks, like do you get a company cell phone or do you have to get to work from home? And I think trying to understand all of those variables so that you're really making a good decision, so somewhere you could be there for a good long-term period. Overall, I'd say again, when taking charge of your career, I think professional development's huge. So I myself, so I'm in SHRM, Society of Human Resource Management, and always trying to do other networking for human resources and talent acquisition professionals. Um, and I'm always trying to, especially post the pandemic, attend networking events. I think I'm just trying to get those back full on my calendar. And I think that those play a key role in being able to understand good industry best trends and being able to kind of build out that part of your network so you understand kind of different pieces like AI and new tools that are coming. Um, so as people are stepping into new roles, I mean, some of the things that I always try to give is like quick advice. And again, these are things that there's like podcasts and there's like TED Talks on these, but act as if is one of the ones that I always encourage people. I think, acting as if you're that next level leader, I think is definitely valuable and gives you some perspective and gives you the chance to kind of elevate your career. So if you're a manager and want to be the director, acting as if you're the director, you're taking on that project, you're having the big strategic element, kind of looking for a broader scope. If you're someone who wants to step into the role, acting as if you're maybe that analyst in the role. What kind of problems is that business facing that you can maybe step in and help them to solve? Um, in addition, whenever someone steps into a new organization, the book that one of my mentors recommended me, The First 90 Days, and it really one of the parts that I love, we talk about kind of quick wins, and I think whenever you're stepping into a new role, there's everyone's kind of like trying to figure out how's this going to work. Is this person going to be up to speed to get up to speed? Are they going to be able to be successful? So I think the quicker that you can like get these wins and establish yourself as someone who understands what's going on, understands your boss objectives and the company's objectives, is the more seamlessly I think you're able to kind of get set up and to be able to kind of build your internal credibility in the organization. So that's just one of the things, again, like I think trying to quickly understand kind of what are the objectives, what kind of things can I help our team to accomplish are always valuable. And I think those are kind of things that oftentimes organizations are looking for when people are getting on board and getting up to speed. So that's kind of my piece, where I just kind of wanted to give a brief overview of some networking best practices. Again, a lot of these things are pieces where you could talk about for an hour and just individual pieces of them. But overall, if you're interested, definitely would love to stay in touch. So that's my LinkedIn and just a quick QR code if it's easier for anyone to scan that. And I always love connecting with the Eastern alumni community and even in current students as well. So definitely appreciate that, and appreciate you guys for having me.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing, Paul. That was, yeah, some really great insight you had there. And something I just want to throw out quickly too, since you were talking about LinkedIn, is Eastern does offer an alumni only LinkedIn group where we allow alumni to connect, post jobs, that kind of a thing. So if anybody on here is interested in joining that, you just have to put in a request and we'll go in. And if we can see Eastern easily on your LinkedIn, we'll add you. If not, we might message you just to make sure you are an alum and get you added to the group. Now I'd like to take a moment to introduce Sarah Todd. Sarah works with our Career Center, and she is going to debut their new interview software, Big Interview, for us.
All righty. Let's see. Paul, there we go. All right, cool. I'm going to jump on, and I want to just reiterate one of the things that Paul talked about tonight is the importance of practice. And as we all know, when you're trying to do interview practice, you have a couple options. You can either stare at yourself in the mirror and practice, or you can try to grab a loved one or a friend to jump in the role. And it can feel very forced and not always it might even make it even more challenging because it's not a professional environment. So something that we've noticed that with our students, particularly Eastern, as it's growing and with all of our different populations, we've noticed that there's a lot of folks who are doing career changing. We've also noticed there's a lot of people who maybe they get another degree and now they're leveling up. And with that comes the fear around, oh my gosh, now I have to do this interview for something I've never gone for before. So one of the things that you'll find when you're working for a small career office is that we like to think of ourselves as generalists. We're people who know a lot about a lot, but we're also people that have a certain level of depth of knowledge for a lot of different fields. So one of the things that we're trying to do is boost our online resources. And to that end, we just got a brand new one called Big Interview. And the reason that I love this software is because it's built around the personalization for whatever your situation is. So let me jump in and get started so you can see what I'm talking about. Okay. So when we get into Big Interview, now I should mention that this is obviously open to all students, but it's also open to alums as well, and it's a free it's a free resource that you get to continue to use. So when you get into Big Interview, there's a lot that you can do, and it really depends upon your personal need. So let's say that you're somebody who's like, next week I have an interview, I need to practice. If that's what you need right now, most importantly, just go right here to the interviews tab. You're going to click on practice sets. And then from there, you can do a couple different things. So you might say, It's been a minute since I've done an interview. I want to start with the general basic kinds of questions that most people are going to get asked. So you can literally start with general. You can click in here and say, notice they have levels. So you can do the standard level, the challenging level, or the tough level. So let's just go for standards right now. So if we click on Stacy, we'll just click on the interview, and then we'll see, there I am, there's my camera, and it's going to record me, and she'll jump in and say, okay, tell me about it. So now it's my turn to answer the question. What's cool about this is that when you're in this process, you're getting to experience an interviewer looking at you. You're getting to experience the online feeling, as most interviews for a lot of companies today are starting off at the virtual stage. And in some cases, they'll all be virtual, depending on the nature of the company and the nature of the role. So this is going to let you practice all these different questions, and you can do it as many times as you want. You can do it at 2 a.m. if you want, whenever you have time, and you can give yourself that that sort of that freedom to practice. I think what is also really cool about this, so let's say that we say, you know what, I've done a lot of the general questions, I need something more specific to my situation. Not a problem. So maybe you're a veteran and you're thinking about trying to translate going from being a veteran into civilian work. Maybe you are someone who is trying to work out for some type of government role. But a lot of our students are looking very specifically at, I want to do an interview for my field. So for example, we have a lot of folks right now that are really interested in data science. So if you're somebody who's thinking about data science and you're graduating with our master's in data science, for example, you can go in here and you can click on the data analytics interview. These will ask questions specific to this area. Same thing could be true. So if Paul wanted to go in and play around with the HR, with the HR interview practice, he could do that. So it really gives you, as you'll see from the side, there's so many different types of jobs that you can practice with. And I think that gives you that sense of feeling like, I'm not just answering random questions about what are my strengths and weaknesses. I'm really drilling down into things my industry might ask me. What I'll say about interviewing is that it also can evoke a lot of fear, because yes, it's not just the practicing, but how do you answer the questions? So we want to start a little bit further back. Maybe you're somebody who knows, I know that I need to start interviewing. I know that I need to start applying for jobs, but I really haven't done this in a while and I'm a little nervous. There is an entire curriculum that you can go through to practice. So if you're thinking to yourself, I need some to brush up on my skills. So you can go in here and you can look for the job search curriculum. This will jump you right in to 5 short videos on how to do job searching. Or maybe you're thinking, I need some more help specifically around interviewing itself. I feel like every time I go into an interview, I bomb. If you click on the fast track, you can go through 16 video lessons. If you are really intense and you want to go through all 50 mastery track lessons, you can do so. And you do get a little certification when you're done. So that's kind of a nice thing you can put on your LinkedIn if you want to. Just another way for you to build, as Paul was talking about, your professional development. I think my favorite thing about the site is that it has playbooks. So these are for all different types of people at different stages. So maybe you just graduated. Maybe you're somebody who's navigating a disability. Maybe you're somebody who just found out that you have ADHD. Maybe you're somebody who's navigating a career change. There's all different types of circumstances that happen. And these playbooks, if you click on them, they will take you through specific information about what to think about when you go into the interview process. Because if you happen to fall into different marginalized spaces, it can be more challenging. So these are designed to help you feel more comfortable and more equipped. But at the end of the day, if you're thinking to yourself, gosh, I really need to practice with these questions, but I have no idea what the right answers are. If you go into the question sets, it will actually allow you to see what their advice is on how to answer the question well. So you don't have to feel alone or scared in this process. So I think the big thing with Big Interview is that you want to use this for what your needs are. So if practicing is what you need to do, fantastic. All you're going to do, again, is jump into the practice sets. If you're someone who has felt like you don't always have the right answer for questions, I might start with the question library and start to do some homework and research. You can even do as you'll notice over here, build your answers using the STAR tool, as Paul mentioned. It will build out your answers for you, and then you can review and improve them as you go. You can even see them while you're practicing. And then finally, of course, if you want to get more curriculum, more knowledge, you can do so in the interview curriculum. And to me, this is, I think, one of the best parts about it is that you can just keep learning. And as we all know, that whether or not you keep getting degrees, if you are a professional in the world today, you want to keep learning. And so Big Interview is just another way for you to do that and to feel more confident as someone who's going into interviews. So we really hope that our alumni community will take advantage of this fantastic resource. I think a lot of the pieces of it fit very well into folks that are more advanced, as well as new students who are just graduating. But I love this tool because it scales depending on who you are and what you need. So hopefully that'll be something that you'll really enjoy. You can find it at eastern.biginterview.com and log in with your Eastern email.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing that, Sarah. I love the diversity behind it. It feels really intentional, and I think it's going to be a great thing for our community to get involved with. And just I was watching that, and I know my husband's actually doing the data science program, and I was like, wow, I'm definitely going to tell him how to do that because he's looking to make that career change as you mentioned. We do have a few people joining us tonight, so I want to give everyone the opportunity to ask any questions. If you have them, feel free to throw them in the chat and we will take a look at that. I don't know about anyone else, but Zoom has been weird all day today. I've been in many meetings and we've all been having trouble with it. So I'm going to just stop sharing my screen so that I can actually access the Q&A function. We'll just give it a few minutes. Yeah, thank you both so much for jumping on with us this evening. I really appreciated getting to hear your perspectives on different things. It's definitely not a realm I'm always in, but we're actually hiring in our office. And so I was like, ooh, making notes of things to look for, that kind of a thing as we're getting there. That's one thing I love about hosting these speaker briefs is I get to learn a little bit about a lot of different topics. I am not seeing anybody jump in the Q&A, so and just to be respectful of everyone's time, we're gonna wrap up for this evening. I'd like to thank everyone for joining us as well, and just give a special thank you to Paul and the Career Center and Sarah for sharing their expertise. And then one quick thing, if you haven't heard, Day of Giving kicks off tomorrow. It's a campaign of 1,925 minutes of giving where we can support our Eastern students. So it's a really cool way to give back. You can give in many different areas. You can support the Eastern Fund, which just helps all students with scholarships. You can support specific clubs, departments, teams, anything like that. Paul, you could give to the basketball team. I know that athletics always has big competitions, which team can raise the most money. It's a really cool time to be a part of that Eastern community. So keep a lookout for that. That's on all of the alumni social media channels. It will also be on the main Eastern channels, and you can make a gift at giving.eastern.edu. We look forward to our next speaker brief, which will be in May, and we hope to see everyone then. Thank you so much for your time this evening.
Thank you.